Hello, adventurers, travelers, and friends, and welcome to another Bragworthy Adventures video. I'm your host, Rose, and today we're going to talk about Chicago. If you didn't know, I grew up in a town called Naperville. It's 45 minutes outside of Chicago. So I'm not claiming to be a Chicagoan, but I lived close enough and it was the only big city around, so I do know a bit about Chicago. When we live near something, sometimes we take it for granted. We don't go and make the most of where we're at then because to us it's not a big deal. But when you visit a place, it becomes a big deal. So I switched my mindset from someone who lived near the city and can go whenever they wanted to someone who was probably not going to get too many chances to see Chicago. So I wanted to make sure to try and do all the things because that's who I am. And I've been to Chicago probably 3 or 4 times in the past 2 years. And each time I went, I wanted to try and see it all or do it all. And each trip has been a little different. And after these 4 trips, I just thought it would be such a good idea to tell you from the perspective of someone who has been to Chicago quite a few times in their life, especially growing up right near there, but is now looking at it from the perspective of a tourist or a visitor, what things you might want to do, how you can best take advantage of those things to do in the city. So I just wanted to give you some of my findings after my recent visits as a tourist in Chicago, after having lived in Chicago. So, as you might know, there are some places that are the big ticket items for the city. So I think of this no matter what city I'm going to, what are the things that come up first when you Google them? What are the first things that people talk about when you talk about that city? You've got Museum Campus. So Museum Campus includes the Shedd Aquarium, the Adler Planetarium, the Field Museum, all of those. You've also got the Art Institute of Chicago. So if you're talking about the museums, and the Science and Industry Museum of Chicago. Outside of the museum district, we've got more of like the views. So that is the Sears Tower or Willis Tower. And you've got the 360 Chicago. And then there are some nice rooftop bars as well, which I will talk about. Other big ticket items that pop up are the zoos, Lincoln Park Zoo, of course Millennium Park, who can forget the Cloud Gate or the Bean. So I feel like that summarizes our big ticket items. But when you're visiting a city, you gotta keep in mind with the long list of things that you could do, what can you afford? And what do you want to do based on the weather, your budget, who you're with? So I'm going to go through 3 different ideas of what's free, how to make the most cost-effective choices, and what splurges may be worth it. And as I go through, I'll tell you when I did these, what weather point this would be best at. And so hopefully this can help you make your decision on what you want to do. So there's quite a bit of free things to do in Chicago, and one of them is one of the things that you can't go to Chicago and not see, and that is Millennium Park. Millennium Park is where you can find that Cloud Gate. That's what the bean is called, that big silver bean. And you can also find the spitting fountains. It's a great place to go in the summer. The spitting fountains have water coming out. You could wear a swimsuit or not and just splash around, walk around. In the winter, there's an ice skating rink right near there too. So if you still want to have an outdoorsy thing to do in the cold, that's something to do. Another free item, which is really wonderful to see, is the Lincoln Park Zoo. It is so fun to visit. It's a beautiful zoo, and they accept donations, although you don't have to pay anything to go in. So it's a great way to spend a day. I think it's perfect for warmer weather, and it costs you nothing. Another free item, and most of these free items are outdoors, which is typical, is Lake Michigan, which is kind of like our beach. Living in Florida, it's funny to call Lake Michigan a beach, but it's such a huge lake that you can't even see the other side of it. So it does feel like an ocean in a way. The water just goes on and on and on. And it's a wonderful place to go and hang out for the summer. And then also, if you're looking for a place to get some great views, but you don't want to spend the money to go up the Sears Tower or to go to the 360 Chicago, you can go to the London House. There is a rooftop bar sort of option. If you go in, it's right around the Riverwalk. If you go in and you go up, it has some amazing views, very gorgeous, cute picture opportunity, and it doesn't cost a dime, except for if you get a drink. So that would be my list of free things. Most of them are pretty outdoorsy, which is typical for free things, but even in the winter or the fall or the spring, you can bundle up and still enjoy these items for no cost. Now, if you are thinking, like I tend to think, this is my time to be in Chicago. I know it may cost a little bit, but I want to try and see the most. There are some budget options for how you can group things together and see quite a few things at way less of a cost. So the two big ones are the Go Chicago Pass and the City Pass for Chicago. Now, there are city passes all over the world, and they're something that I really love to use. They group a lot of the big items because they know what tourists want to see when they're visiting the cities. The Go Chicago Pass, I did not know much about. So I looked up a little bit more, and it's a buffet versus a fixed menu. The City Pass can take you 5 places at a fixed cost, and that's where you go. The Go Chicago Pass is a little more complex, has a longer list of items, has different tiers. For me personally, the City Pass already had all the things that I wanted to see, and I was looking for ease, so that's the one I went with. But if there are different things you want to see that aren't included on the City Pass, you should really look into the Go Chicago Pass because it may be able to fit what you're looking to do. Now, since I did the City Pass, I can tell you a little bit more about that one. It includes 5 options. 2 of those options are a this or that option. So the 3 that are absolutely included are the Shed Aquarium, the Sky Deck of Chicago, so that's the Sears Tower, and the Field Museum. And then the 2 this or that options, so you can do the Adler Planetarium or Art Institute of Chicago. The other this or that option is the Museum of Science and Industry or the 360 Chicago. So you've got the 3 that you have that are absolutely included and 2 that you can kind of have a little leeway on. Now, what I wanted to do is I really wanted to go to the planetarium, the Field Museum, and the Sears Tower. Those alone cost $93 if you add that all together, and that's just the base price. With the City Pass, you get more than just the basic. Sometimes you get to cut the lines, you almost always get the extra show or the extra ticket to the extra exhibits, that sort of thing. So I felt like it was extremely worth it at $108. And the Go Chicago Pass I was looking at was $109, but it included some of the things I wanted, but it also seemed just a little more complicated. So I went with the City Pass, and it was great because it was chilly. These sorts of museum options and these sites, the 360 and the Sears Tower, they are so perfect for cold weather because you bundle up, but then once you're inside, you can check your jacket or put it in a locker and just enjoy yourself without having to worry about being chilly, and I hate being chilly. So for the winter months, this may be a great way to get the most and to see the most while also staying comfortable. Now, there are 2 things that are definitely not free, and I don't know exact discounts for them, although I believe the Go Chicago Pass includes one of them, but I felt like they were worth it. So it's up to you to decide, but this is me giving you my tips, so I'm gonna tell you what they are. That is an architecture cruise. Now, if you didn't know, Chicago is very well known for its architecture, especially because the city burned down almost completely in the Chicago fire and was rebuilt. An architecture cruise is one of those things that people know Chicago for. It's one of the things that is on the you've got to do this when you come here. And I agree with that. I went on the First Lady Architecture Cruise. One of the times I went, it was a little warmer, one of the times a little colder, one of the times it was earlier day, one of the times later. Both times were amazing, and both times we had great tour guides. The tour guides are all from the Chicago Architecture Foundation. So they truly love what they're doing. It's not one of those tours where you've got that guy up front who's spieling out the same script that he says every 2 hours, and he's clearly done with it. It's someone who's passionate, and each tour has a different perspective. So I definitely heard different things on both the tours I went on, and it was really cool to hear what they found interesting about the architecture. Now it does cost around $45, prices vary, but I felt like it was worth it because I enjoyed the experience, and it felt like not only did it teach me something, which I love to learn the history of the places I'm in, but it also gave me the sights I wanted to see and showed me the whole city down the river. Another tour that I would recommend that costs a pretty penny but is so much fun is a Segway tour. So my friend is actually a Segway tour guide. She's with My Segway Experience. Ask for Hannah, she's awesome. And it was just so much fun to be able to zoom by a lot of these places kind of at Lake Michigan, the museum, campus, Millennium Park. On a map, they look kind of close to each other, but when you're actually walking them, it can be incredibly tiring. So being able to zoom by on a Segway kept the energy up, and it was so much fun to hear about these places and see these places. And plus, being on a Segway is fun. I don't know about you, but I don't own a Segway, so being able to ride one is just a special experience on its own. So I really enjoyed that. That was $60. And then of course, please tip your tour guides. So that is another recommendation. I think that one's better in warm weather, along with the architecture cruise. I think those are better in warm weather. That's just my view on the free, the budget, and the splurge items to do in Chicago and what to do in the winter versus the summer. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe. Let me know, do you want to hear more about Chicago? I lived near there for 18 years, so I know more. I know more about the food, I know more about things outside the city to do, so if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I just thought I keep going there and I keep posting Instagram photos of being there, so I thought you might want to know what to do when you're there. If you go and you do any of these things, tell me what you think about it. Do hashtag bragworthy adventures on your pictures and I'll look at them. But I just want to thank you guys for watching. I love you all, and I'm really happy to be here sharing what I know about traveling and about the cities that I love. So thanks for watching, and as always, bye travelers.